Welcome to r/ProRevenge, where this worker buys UberEats for herself on her colleague's company card to try and get her fired. When someone tried to get you fired, but you have a reverse card. This incident blew up in March 2021, in the middle of lockdowns and stuff. It would probably be recognizable to people I work with. Hopefully they don't read this thread. It's a story about someone whose ambition was bigger than their ethics and the law, and it coming back to bite them. At the time, I was working as a manager in a mid-sized business. While I was there, I was assigned a new member to my team. I'll call her Evil. Now, Evil was in her mid-20s and was pretty fresh out of college. She was the kind of person who could talk your ear off about all of her ideas and plans and what she was working on, but she never really seemed to have anything to show for it. When I talked to her about clients complaining that she wasn't getting back to them, she would always have an excuse about how difficult they were, how snowed under she was, and how she'd written an email but it must have gotten lost in spam, so on and so forth. Basically, never her faults. It got to the point where after one of our monthly meetings, I called her in and explained that if she couldn't get her task done, she needed to let us know so we could help delegate resources to make sure things weren't slipping through the cracks. I'll admit, I was pretty direct. Her performance was impacting the whole team, and my job was literally to keep the team on track. I get that people can be under pressure, there can be stuff going on at home which impacts work, and that sometimes people need a bit of help. But if every time I ask about a project, you say, yep, everything's good, I've got it under control, and then it all falls apart, and your only response is to blame the client, we've got a problem. I explained that I wasn't going to start formal performance management or anything like that, but from now on, I'd like her to check in with me on Monday mornings for 10 minutes to go over objectives for the week and to check if she needed support with any of her clients. I know it isn't fun to be micromanaged, so I try to keep these check-ins short and mostly just offer assistance on stuff. She clearly hated my guts though, and apparently was hatching her own ProRevenge. Now, part of my role included use of a purchasing card, which wasn't in my name, but I had access to it. I was given the card to basically make small purchases for the office or spend up to $500 on clients. The card was kept in an office I shared with another team manager where we could both access it when we needed it. One day, I get a call from accounts asking about a few abnormal purchases on the card. A Photoshop subscription, a couple of UberEats orders, an HBO subscription, etc. I say I don't know anything about them and they should check with the other team manager. Apparently, the other team manager didn't know anything about them either because after the weekend, I get called into the big boss's office. After my colleague and I had denied involvement, accounts had started calling Adobe and Uber and stuff to find out where the transactions were coming from. They said that not only were the accounts in my name, they were registered to an email address with my name in it too. For example, op@domain.com or something like that. I can't describe what it felt like to be in that meeting. I felt physically sick. I couldn't work out what was happening. I was so shocked I didn't know what to say. I felt like I was about to get fired and I couldn't understand how that was even possible. The director was going on about how access to the card was a privilege and that I'd signed an agreement about appropriate use and so on and so forth. I denied that I'd been using it inappropriately, and the boss listened, but I could tell he wasn't that convinced. To be honest, in my head, I was gaslighting myself and worrying that I'd somehow saved the card in Google and maybe my wife had been accidentally using it or something. It was terrible, and I found myself apologizing and saying, I don't know how this happened. I assure you that I know that none of those expenses are appropriate uses of company funds. There must have been some kind of mistake. Can I please have the details and I'll look into it, etc, etc. When I finally got out of that office, job still intact, barely, Evil was waiting for me at my office door. She was grinning from ear to ear, and she sweetly explained that she'd been waiting for our morning meeting. I told her something had come up and we'd do the meeting tomorrow, and she said, "Oh, will you be in tomorrow?" Now, confused, because I didn't know I was in a ProRevenge thread at the time, I just replied, "Yeah, why would I not be in tomorrow?" And she just sipped her tea and said, "Oh, no reason," turned around and went back to her desk. Something felt off, but I was still worrying about what had happened with the boss, so I spent the next couple of hours calling my wife, calling Adobe, and doing the same legwork that accounts had done. It became very obvious that someone had been using my name and the company card to spend a bunch of money online. Had I been hacked or something? Well, personal info on the dark web, and these hackers just really wanted Photoshop and Wendy's delivered. It was the Uber Eats that was evil's undoing. After getting on the phone and talking through what had gone on, and obviously giving my name for the account and everything, the fellow on the phone told me where the food had been delivered. It was in our city, which made me rule out straight away any notion of my data being sold online or something. Now I was suspicious and angry. I don't like to think the worst of people, but now I was. Listening to my gut, I pulled up Evil's employee information and checked her address. I pulled it up on Google Maps, dropped a pin on her place, and then looked for the address Uber Eats had given me. It was the corner of her effing block. I was furious. When she left work for the day, I got IT to give me access to her laptop. Sure enough, when I opened up her domain.com account, under her listed accounts was op@domain.com, the same email that had been used for the Uber order. There were some things that she had been smart about. The IP address she'd been using was the office, which would have tied back to me. She'd even had the food delivered to a different address. She'd even made a fake email address. But saving her passwords on a work computer was a mistake. I called the boss that night and explained what I'd found, and kept the IT guy with me to support the fact that I hadn't just logged into her computer and made it all up. The next day, the boss called her into the office and fired her so bad there were red trucks lining up outside the building. When she, teary-eyed, left his office, I made sure I was standing in the hall sipping a cup of tea. It had gotten cold while I waited for her, but look, it still tasted sweet. I hope she went home that night, because if she did, she would have received some nice Goodbye Wendy's delivered by Uber Eats, paid for on my personal card, of course. That is brilliant. Revenge and justice can be the same thing, right? In the end, she was fired. The boss apologized, and we were on good terms when I left in October for a new gig. Now she, Evil, never apologized, and I've not seen her since. The boss decided not to get police involved, and neither did I. I just didn't want the hassle. Wow, guys, I've got to say, on behalf of Evil, good effort. You were so close. Yeah, horrible thing to do, but you have to praise her, you know. She was very, very close to getting this worker fired. It was almost perfect. I do think that ordering the food to the corner of your house is a bit stupid. I mean, look, come on. You might as well order it to your house at that point. At least do it a few streets away or something and then drive and go and get it. The corner of your building? Yeah, it's pretty obvious. Not to mention being logged in on the Uber Eats account on your work laptop. Yeah, pretty dumb. And the email as well. I like the fact that you made the email in the first place in OP's name. But yeah, leaving yourself logged in, not the smartest idea. It's actually pretty cool. I think this might be the first ProRevenge story that I've read, which was written by the victim. Like, OP didn't realize that they were on the receiving end. And it's amazing as well that they just used the exact same revenge in reverse to get their revenge. Do you get what I'm saying? Very, very clever. I really enjoyed this story. Imagine, guys, being Evil, going home, knowing you're fired, and then from out of nowhere, an Uber Eats order arrives, and you know exactly who it's from, and the pain in that Wendy's burger. It's just too much to take. Probably a nice burger though, who knows? Now moving on to our next story. Now this one actually comes from r/nuclear revenge, so you know it's going to be a little bit more serious than the first. Miss Nice Girl has left the building. First, I need to explain something. I seem like a very nice, laid-back, easygoing person, so most people make the mistake of thinking I'm a spineless wimp they can take advantage of. Operative word there is seem. In point of fact, I have a vicious, vindictive temper. I'm just emotionally lazy. I don't like wasting time and energy on confrontation that can more profitably be spent elsewhere. However, if you mess with my family or my money, very bad things will happen to you. As my mum liked to say, Miss Nice Fancy has left the building and you don't want to meet the other fancy. Example follows. This happened about 20 years ago. I started working as a CAD drafter for a small drafting and design firm, practically fresh out of college. I made a good salary, not great, but comfortable. Very soon, I found myself the drafter, receptionist, office manager, file clerk, and even janitor when I needed to pick up a little extra money. My boss was almost never in the office because I was there to handle everything. After a year of being general factotum, on Friday the 13th of April, my boss comes to me and tells me he doesn't have my income tax paperwork ready, but has a reasonable excuse, and he asked me to file an extension. I told him, this is kind of last minute, don't you think? But okay, I'll do it. And I did. Every couple of weeks afterwards, I'd ask him about my tax paperwork, and he'd tell me no, not yet, and umpteen excuses why not. Finally, he told me his lawyer had them and was finishing preparing them, and would be ready any day. Really? I did wonder why his lawyer was working on them instead of his accountant, but I didn't say anything. My tax extension would be up on Sunday, July 15th, so I had to turn my taxes in by Saturday, July 14th. On Friday, July 13th, at about 5 p.m, I was sitting in my office chatting with my mum, who was there to give me a ride home. My boss came into the office and had the gall to ask me to file another tax extension and gave me some totally bogus excuse. You see, what he didn't know was I'd found all my tax paperwork on his computer a few weeks before. It just needed to be printed out and signed off. So I knew then that he'd been lying his butt off the whole time. I remember staring at him for a few moments, absolutely dumbfounded, then smiling and saying, okay. My mum told me afterwards, when she saw me smile at him like that she thought, oh snap, my daughter's gonna kill this guy and I don't know if I can stop her. I'm sure he wishes that that's all I'd done to him. First thing Monday morning, I walked straight up to my boss and dropped my resignation on his desk. He's like, what the heck? And tried to argue. But I don't argue. I just tell him, I'm leaving. Do you want me to work my notice? He said, heck no, get your stuff and get out. Which was another huge mistake in a long line of them. Because I left and went straight to the IRS office, where I gave up all the goods on this guy. He apparently never actually paid any of my taxes or his, though he did take it out of my pay and I had proof. It so happens, before he was a CAD drafter, designer, he was a CPA who left that field under a cloud. The IRS was not happy to hear his name again. Everybody knows you do not mess with the IRS. Not content with that, I then contacted all of his business associates and told them what he'd done, that he was being investigated by the IRS, and if they didn't want to be too, they might want to steer clear. I didn't tell his wife, whom I was on very good terms with, but only because I wanted him to have that pleasure. Just picture that conversation. Oh my god, why did she leave? She did everything. Well, I'm very sure she heard all about it from his associates. I will give him this. He was stubborn. He managed to hang on to his business for about a year of living hell before going under. But I smirked every time I went by his empty office. Wait, so you're telling me, OP, that your boss was filing tax returns for you, taking the money, but then not actually paying the tax? Does it get much worse than that? I mean, come on, what a little scammer. Disgrace of a man. IRS, I hope you absolutely pound that man. No, not in that way, you sickos. Or maybe, who knows, maybe he deserves it. You know what is actually very worrying is that this man probably has done the same to many other people as well. And it was OP's, hard work that got him finally caught and has ruined his business. But I just feel bad for all the other people that this has definitely happened to. Let's be realistic. Imagine how many years this guy's been doing this. Messing with someone's money is probably one of the worst things you can do. After family, that is. Like, come on. That's terrible. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of r/ProRevenge. A couple of great stories in there, some original content, which I loved. If you want more from this subreddit and more revenge stories, then I posted this one the other day, Nuclear Revenge. It's crazy. 25 minutes of unbelievable stories, I'm not going to lie. If you thought this one has some serious stories, wow, check that out. Trust me. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and I'll see you all tomorrow with a brand new episode.